The accusations began at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon at the Miller family reunion. I was seated at a picnic table in Golden Gate Park, poking at a scoop of potato salad and doing my best to disappear, when my father stood and raised his beer. "I want to thank everyone for coming," he said. "Family is everything. We support each other, we help each other, we show up." He paused. Then his gaze locked onto me. "Well, most of us do." Aunt Patricia didn't miss a beat. "Some people in this family understand generosity. They understand what it means to give back. And some people," Uncle Mike added, staring straight at me, "only think about themselves." My mother stood, her lips pressed tight. "I'll just say it. Our daughter, Natalie, has never helped anyone in this family. Not once. She's selfish. Always has been." 43 relatives turned in unison to look at me. "When your cousin Jenny couldn't pay rent, where were you?" Mom continued. "When Uncle Mike needed help with his business? When your grandmother had medical bills?" "Nowhere," Dad said flatly, "because Natalie doesn't care about family." I set my fork down. "A complete disappointment," my mother added, her voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "We raised her better than this." I could have defended myself. I could have explained. I could have told them where my money had really gone. Instead, I unlocked my phone and sent a text. "Me, David. Where are you?" "David, 5 minutes out. FBI's with me." "Me, perfect." I placed the phone face down and smiled. My cousin Sarah leaned in. "Natalie, are you okay?" "I'm perfect." "They're being really harsh." "They're being honest," I said calmly, "and I appreciate honesty." "But you're not selfish, you helped me with." "Just watch," I murmured. "Watch what happens next." 4 minutes later, the reunion went silent. A man in a dark suit walked into the picnic area. Behind him followed 3 FBI agents in navy windbreakers, bold yellow letters screaming FBI across their backs. David Martinez, my private investigator, walked straight toward my table. "Miss Miller?" "That's me. I'm David Martinez. We spoke on the phone. I have the final report on the financial fraud investigation you commissioned." Every head snapped toward us. "Fraud?" my father asked sharply. "What fraud?" David opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. 3 months ago, Ms. Miller hired me to investigate irregularities in her credit report. What we uncovered was extensive identity theft. He flipped it open. Over 7 years, 23 credit cards were opened in Natalie Miller's name. Total fraudulent charges, $267,000. Gasps rippled through the park. A woman stepped forward, badge raised. "Special Agent Carol Rodriguez, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We have active warrants." My mother's face drained of color. "Warrants, for who?" Agent Rodriguez glanced down. "Jennifer Miller, Patricia Miller, Michael Miller. Charges include identity theft, credit card fraud, and wire fraud." Silence. Jenny shot to her feet. "That's insane." "I didn't." "Jennifer Miller," the agent interrupted. "You opened 11 credit cards using your cousin's identity, $89,000 in charges, cards delivered to your address, purchases made near your home. The evidence is overwhelming." Jenny's knees buckled. "Natalie, I can explain." "Aunt Patricia," the agent continued. 7 credit cards, $112,000, wedding expenses, home renovations, and international travel." Patricia clutched the table. "I was going to pay it back." "Michael Miller," Agent Rodriguez said, turning. 5 cards, $66,000, business expenses for a failed restaurant. Uncle Mike's hands trembled. "You make good money," he said to me desperately. "I didn't think you'd notice." I stood. "I'm a high school teacher," I said evenly. "I make $68,000 a year." My father shook his head. "But you never helped anyone. You had to have savings." "I did," I replied. $180,000, 10 years of budgeting. It's gone, because I've spent years making minimum payments on debts I didn't create, trying not to go bankrupt while figuring out who was stealing from me." David closed the folder. "For 7 years, 3 members of this family destroyed Natalie Miller's financial life, then called her selfish for not giving them more." Handcuffs clicked. Jennifer Miller, you're under arrest. No, Jenny screamed. Natalie, please, we're family. Patricia Miller, you're under arrest. My son deserved a beautiful wedding, Patricia sobbed. Michael Miller, you're under arrest. Uncle Mike lunged toward me. You're tearing this family apart. Agents restrained him instantly. As they were led away, my father whispered, broken. Natalie, what have you done? I met his eyes. I protected myself, I said softly. From the family that robbed me blind, then called me selfish for surviving, I hired David Martinez, a private investigator who specialized in identity theft. I want to know who's doing this to me, I told him. I don't care what it costs. He didn't sugarcoat it. Investigations like this usually run between $15,000 and $25,000. Fine, I said. Find them. It took 3 months. And when David came back, he came back with everything. What people don't understand about identity theft is that it's not just about money. It's about time. Every fraudulent card meant hours on the phone, disputes, affidavits, police reports, documentation. I spent hundreds of hours over 7 years fighting fraud while working full-time as a teacher. Teaching isn't a 9-to-5 job. It's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then grading at night, lesson planning on weekends, add weekly battles with banks and credit bureaus, and suddenly there was no room left for a life. No dating. No hobbies. No friends. Just work and damage control. Meanwhile, my family thrived. Jenny got married, took vacations, posted endlessly on Instagram about her blessed life. Aunt Patricia renovated her house from top to bottom. Uncle Mike opened and shut down 3 restaurants. All of it was financed on my credit, while they told everyone I was selfish. David's investigation uncovered how it happened. Jenny had lived with me briefly during her divorce. She'd had access to my mail, bank statements, credit offers, tax documents, everything she needed. When her spending spiraled, she brought in reinforcements. Natalie won't help us, she told them, so we'll help ourselves. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Mike joined in when they hit financial trouble. They coordinated carefully, taking turns opening cards so the pattern wouldn't trigger alerts. They treated my identity like shared property. And the rest of the family watched me struggle, while judging me for not giving more. 2 weeks before the reunion, David called. Natalie, he said, it's airtight. Names, dates, amounts, documentation. Tell me. 23 credit cards. $267,000. 7 years of calculated theft, by 3 people who shared my last name. What do you want to do? He asked. I want them arrested. There was a pause. They're your family. They're criminals, and they destroyed my financial life. This will involve the FBI, wire fraud, identity theft, federal charges. Good. Natalie, your family is going to hate you. They already do, I said. They just call it disappointment. Another pause. When do you want this to happen? The family reunion. 2 weeks from now. You want FBI agents at a family reunion? I want the truth exposed in front of everyone who spent 7 years calling me selfish. That's cold. That's justice. The next 2 weeks were meticulous. First, I met with Special Agent Carol Rodriguez and her team. They reviewed David's evidence. This is strong, she said. Clear intent. Multiple perpetrators. Over $250,000. These are serious federal charges. What happens to them? If convicted, 5 to 10 years each, plus restitution. Restitution? They'll be ordered to pay you back. I just want it to stop, I said, and I want everyone to know. A public arrest will accomplish that. Good. Second, I documented everything, printed reports, timelines, totals. Fraudulent charges, $267,000. My own money spent on minimum payments, $30,000. Time lost fighting fraud, approximately 800 hours. Third, I prepared myself. This would fracture my family. My parents would be devastated. Relatives would take sides. But I was done being the villain in a story where I was the victim. The night before the reunion, my sister called. Natalie, you're coming tomorrow, right? Yes. Mom and Dad are upset you didn't help Jenny with rent again. I know. Can you just apologize? Smooth things over? They're going to bring it up. Let them. You're being stubborn. No, I said, I'm being honest. After Jenny, Patricia, and Mike were led away in handcuffs, the park stayed silent. 40 relatives stared at me, shock, anger, shame flickering across their faces. David cleared his throat. For anyone interested, I have copies of the investigative report. It documents 7 years of financial fraud committed against Natalie Miller by 3 family members. My father finally spoke. You had your own family arrested. I had criminals arrested, I said. They just happen to be related to me. They're your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. They opened 23 credit cards in my name. They stole $267,000. And you all called me selfish while it happened. My mother was crying. How could you do this? How could I report crimes? I asked quietly. How could I stop being robbed? We didn't know, Dad said. You didn't ask. I told you years ago I was dealing with identity theft. You dismissed it. Aunt Susan stepped forward. Natalie, please. They're going to prison. Can't you drop the charges? No. Why? Because for 7 years, I paid for Jenny's lifestyle, Patricia's renovations, and Mike's failed businesses, while working 60-hour weeks and being told I wasn't doing enough. My cousin Tom exploded. You're destroying this family. Your sister destroyed my financial life. I'm just holding her accountable. She has kids. And I had a future she stole. David stepped in calmly. Jenny Miller opened her first fraudulent card 2 months before her wedding, to pay for her honeymoon. Patricia Miller used fraudulent credit for renovations, travel, and a wedding. Michael Miller funded failing restaurants, then abandoned the debt attached to Natalie's name. He looked around. This was deliberate, systematic, and it nearly ruined her. My mother shook her head slowly, the truth finally settling in. I don't believe this. There has to be an explanation. There is, I said steadily. They're thieves. And you all enabled them by calling me selfish when I couldn't give you money, because they'd already stolen everything I had. A quiet voice cut through the tension. Grandma rose. She was 92, small, sharp-eyed, and the only person in the family who hadn't looked away. Natalie, she asked gently, did you ever ask anyone here for help? No. Why not? I swallowed. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought I'd failed somehow. And because every time I mentioned the identity theft, someone in this family told me it was my fault for being careless. Grandma nodded slowly. I'm sorry, she said. We didn't listen. Thank you, Agent Rodriguez said, stepping forward. Ms. Miller, do you have anything further to add? Yes, I said. One thing. I stood and faced the reunion. For 7 years, you watched me struggle. You judged me for not helping financially. You called me selfish, cold, and disappointing. Not once did anyone ask if I was okay, if I needed help, if something was wrong. You just assumed I was the problem. I let the silence stretch. Now you know the truth. The problem was never me. The problem was 3 criminals who stole from family, and a family that chose not to see it. I picked up my bag. I'm leaving. David has copies of the investigative report if anyone wants facts instead of assumptions. The FBI may contact some of you for statements. Natalie, wait. My sister grabbed my arm. Where will you go? Home, I said. To the apartment I could barely afford because my credit was destroyed. To start rebuilding my life, now that the theft has stopped. What about the family? What about them? I asked quietly. They chose to believe I was selfish instead of asking why I was struggling. I walked away. Behind me, voices rose, arguing, crying, confusion, but I didn't turn back. 20 minutes later, the first call came. Natalie, we need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. You can't just destroy this family. I didn't. Jenny, Patricia, and Mike did. I just exposed it. Can't you drop the charges? No. Why not? Because they committed federal crimes. Because they stole $267,000. Because they took 7 years of my life. And because actions have consequences. They're family. Family doesn't commit identity theft, I said. Criminals do. He hung up. Mom called next. Natalie, please. Patricia is my sister. She made a mistake. 23 credit cards over 7 years isn't a mistake. It's a system. She was desperate. So was I said. And I didn't commit crimes. How can you be so cold? How can you defend someone who stole from your daughter? She hung up. The messages started flooding in. Cousin Tom, you're dead to this family. Aunt Susan, I hope you're proud of ruining lives. Uncle Dave, we always knew you were selfish. Now we know you're vindictive too. But there were others. Melissa, I'm sorry. I didn't believe you. I should have listened. Sarah, what you did was brave. They were wrong. Grandma Rose, come see me tomorrow. We should talk. That night, I cried, not from regret, but from relief. For 7 years, I'd been drowning, working 2 jobs, fighting fraud, watching my savings disappear, being shamed by people who were stealing from me. Now it was over. The FBI had the perpetrators. The fraud stopped. I could rebuild. The family, however, was broken, probably forever. And I realized that was okay. The legal process took 18 months. Jenny pled guilty to 11 counts of identity theft, 4 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $89,000 in restitution. Patricia pled guilty to 7 counts, 3 years in prison, $112,000 in restitution. Mike went to trial, lost, and received 5 years in prison and $66,000 in restitution. The payments would take years. But the money wasn't the point anymore. The validation was. The family split predictably. Some said I did the right thing. Others said I destroyed everything out of revenge. My parents sided with the criminals. They stopped speaking to me. My sister stood by me. What they did was unconscionable. Grandma Rose called it the reckoning this family avoided for decades. I changed my number, moved apartments, rebuilt my credit. 6 months later, the San Francisco Chronicle ran the headline. Local teacher exposes $267,000 identity theft by family members. It went viral. When the reporter asked if I had regrets, I said, I regret not investigating sooner. What about your family? I regret that they chose criminals over a victim. My mother says you were always selfish. She enabled federal crimes against her daughter. Her opinion of my character no longer matters. That sounds harsh. It's honest, I said. I spent 7 years being gaslit by people who were robbing me. I'm done softening the truth. Messages poured in from strangers. You gave me courage. This happened to me too. Thank you for speaking up. A year later, I spoke at a fraud victim advocacy conference in Washington. Crimes don't become less serious because the criminal is family, I told the room. Victims are pressured to stay silent to preserve appearances. That silence protects criminals, not families. They gave me a standing ovation. 2 years after the arrests, I bought a condo. Credit score, 720. Down payment, saved. Life, finally moving forward. Melissa helped me move. Mom wants to apologize, she said. For what? I asked. For judging me? For defending criminals? For choosing her sister over her daughter? All of it. I needed her support 7 years ago, I said. Not now. Can you ever forgive her? Maybe, I said, but forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. That night, sitting alone in my new home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because the money was back, it wasn't. Not because the family healed, it didn't. But because I chose myself. I later received a letter from Jenny. I read it twice. Then I replied, I accept your apology, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. What you did changed my life. I wish you well, but from a distance. Because forgiveness is not access. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. You can acknowledge growth and still walk away. You can choose peace without reconciliation. And I did. I chose myself. And I would do it again, every single time.